Vinnie Iyer of the Sporting News, joining us right now here on 97.3 ESPN. Vinnie, how you doing?
Good. How's it going, Josh?
Going pretty good. Let's first start with the NFC as a whole. You look at these teams, the Eagles, the Saints, and the Vikings, three teams that didn't make the playoffs last year are arguably the three best teams in the NFC this year. It's amazing how the league can just have a massive turnover from one year to the next.
Yeah, it seems to happen a lot more in the NFC of late just because of different things that have happened. The injuries this year for sure have played a factor, definitely with Green Bay. We've had a suspension in Dallas that's kind of marred their season. So two teams that we figured were going to be in the mix, the Packers and Cowboys, have kind of fallen out for various reasons. The Seahawks and Falcons are kind of still finding themselves here as two teams we thought could make some noise. But there's just more turnover. I think the teams are a little closer. I think you have better overall quarterback play in the NFC, where in the AFC there's a big drop-off between the few teams that have those veteran reliable starters or young guys on the rise and everyone else. And that's what you're kind of seeing develop in this league.
One of the things I mentioned earlier in the show, Vinny, was the fact that the Eagles, the Vikings, and the Saints, and you can even throw the Rams in because they're 7-3 as well with a great point differential. All four of them have running games. All four of them have either good or very improved offensive line play, and they're all playing defense, which goes to talk about the fact that football is really the ultimate team sport, is it not?
Yeah, and they also know their game plans from week after week. They know what they do well offensively. They go to it. They exploit matchups very well. They know how to mask any issues they might have defensively by playing ball control, especially the Saints have been very good at that this season with running the ball. But when you look at them, I think the Eagles are the most complete. I think the Saints, because of Breeze and having gone all the way, are pretty dangerous there. And I think the Vikings are building momentum with each passing week that you trust a lot of things they do on both sides of the ball. So I think you have three teams that are kind of becoming serious threats here. We're going to soon find out the Falcons and Seahawks will get some shots at these teams directly, the Panthers as well. So we'll see how legitimate those three teams are in getting into this mix with the other three.
You look at the Eagles at 9-1. Obviously, they have a less than dubious matchup with the Bears tomorrow. But that 3-game stretch coming up at Seattle, at Los Angeles, coming back to the East to play the Giants. There's 3 road games. 2 of them are against 2 teams. They're going to present some very interesting obstacles. Obviously, Seattle a little bit depleted injury-wise, but the Rams are still a very serious team to be a contender. What do you expect from the Eagles down the stretch this season?
Well, I think they should be constantly better, and you've seen that. They've improved with every game. Early was a lot of Carson Wentz kind of catching people by surprise with how much he'd improved with all the weapons. But then as you've gone on, he's relaxed a little bit more as you've had more of a running game that's taken over with the J.J. in the mix, the emergence of Corey Clement as well. So a couple guys really making the running game a big factor. And then defensively, they got Ronald Darby back, had a huge impact in his first game there with the rest of the front seven. So this Eagles team is a very, very good overall. It'll be good to have their defense tested here down the stretch, so they're prepared for anything that comes at them at the playoffs.
I look at the Eagles, and with that trade of J.J. and this overall team, I think that while it's amazing to see how well this team has played, I don't think that we give the Eagles front office enough credit and Doug Peterson enough credit, because you look at this organization just 2 years ago, it was an absolute mess. And now they basically rebuilt the entire roster. They have a whole new coaching staff in place. And I think it's the combination of Peterson, the coach, with what the front office has done, Howie Roseman and Joe Douglas, has really made this 9-1 team possible.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. When you look at the Eagles and Vikings, a weird trade that has kind of helped both of them out indirectly here, where the Eagles were looking at starting Sam Bradford until the very last minute last season, where Teddy Bridgewater went down. They had an opportunity to get a first-round pick. Lou Bradford go full speed ahead with Wentz. We're seeing him, the results of having a full first season as a rookie to start, playing so much better here too. The Vikings adding Bradford, giving them some hope with that offense, and then Case Keenum coming in there to take over this year. So it's funny how that trade kind of helped both teams out pretty well. And I think when you look at the executive of the year, looking at how you had Rick Spielman go out and get Case Keenum and Latavius Murray as backups. How key those two guys have been on the Eagles side. I think you're looking at the two contenders there between him and Howie Roseman for Executive of the Year.
Quick whip around the NFC with you. The Falcons, there's 8 teams that have scored more points than them in the NFC this year. Is that just because of the new offensive coordinator, or is there something else going down there in Atlanta?
Yeah, they're still trying to find the flow of their offense, trying to see who to get involved. It's the biggest difference has been the running game in terms of Kyle Shanahan knew exactly how to use Devonta Freeman and Tevin Coleman, got the most out of them. I think the Falcons have not used their running game enough here. They've had Freeman hurt here in a way that kind of pushed Coleman to be more active and stick with the run a little bit more in a weird way. So I think they found a little bit of groove. With each passing week, you see different elements that look like the Falcons' offense from last year. They haven't quite put it all together, and I think part of it is that Matt Ryan and Julio Jones, either on the front end or back end, that connection has not been close to as dominant as it's been last year. But other guys are starting to emerge in this offense. Mohamed Sanu, Austin Hooper, Coleman has always been a dangerous dual threat. So I think at some point we'll see that old Falcons offense here explode. And then I just think it's a team to watch very carefully. They have 3 straight home games. Got the Bucks. This could be a game where they really break out and show their true colors for 2017.
I know a lot of people point to Ezekiel Elliott as the reason why the Cowboys are struggling, but I was watching the game on Thursday night, and I felt like the Chargers almost knew what the Cowboys were doing on offense before they did it. I feel the Cowboys' offense has just become way too predictable. I don't know if that's a Jason Garrett or a Linehan thing, but whether it's Bryant, Beasley, Witten, or Williams, they seem to all be running the same 2 or 3 routes every time. Is the Cowboys just their offense just totally ineffective without Elliott, or is this a play calling issue as well?
I think the Cowboys, and I wrote this on Thursday, they're a very tightly wound team that they need things to happen in the right way. Everything has to kind of fall in place. They have to have ball control, run it, play with the lead, because they're not built to come back. If you look around and you think Des Bryant not gaining any separation from anybody, Jason Witten is doing his best, but he's an old guy out there running short routes, and then Terrence Williams, the mystery to me is how they constantly trust him as a number 2 receiver. He shows up in basically one game this season. Then Bryce Butler seems like a big play threat they're reluctant to use to change things up in their offense. They really have not shown any field stretching ability, and that's the problem is the Cowboys have kind of sat on this offense. It's been predictable, like you said, that Cole Beasley, everyone knows where that throw in the slot is coming. Everyone knows when that Witten throw is coming. Everyone knows when the Bryant throw is coming. So I think they failed to go and address that position, get a few more playmakers in the passing game to help Dak Prescott. And you've seen him regress a little bit because of that, while Carson Wentz, they upgraded around him, and you see the results there.
Speaking of not having weapons around him, Eli Manning, his team is 2-9. They showed the stat during the game on Thursday night. His receivers had the most drops in the NFL, whereas you saw the Eagles, their wide receiver core last year, the most drops per target in the NFL. Now it's this year, it's Eli's wide receiving core that's a total mess. Part of it's because of the injuries, but I think are we blaming Eli too much for the Giants' struggles? Because to me, this is not an Eli's fault.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Eli, and when I look at him, he's been just an average quarterback to me over the past several years, even with some good weapons in there. But you're right. In this case, he's actually playing pretty well given what he's got, and they're just not helping him at all. And having no Sterling Shepard, we saw things how they rolled a little bit with Shepard and Evan Ingram in there. But when you have Evan Ingram as your only threat, he's not as hard to stop because he's not a guy that can block as well, so he's not going to be in there in those situations. So you really need Shepard on the field with no Odell Beckham Jr., no Brandon Marshall. At least he was giving them some playmaking spark there. So tough season for Eli. I totally disagree with thinking about going to Davis Webb just yet. I think you have to go more with Eli, and I think this Giants team is probably kicking itself for a lot of efforts that showed early in the season, because you can see that they can hang around with a lot of teams with their defense when it's playing right.
We're talking with Vinnie Iyer of the Sporting News. You can follow him on Twitter at Vinnie Iyer on Twitter. Vinnie, flipping over to the AFC real quick before I let you go. You look at, obviously the Patriots are the Patriots. Every year it's Brady, it's Belichick. But this Steelers team has really impressed me, especially on defense. I like the moves they made in the offseason, whether it was getting Hayden, getting Wilcox, adding to the defense they had already built. I feel like it's going to be because of that defense more so than the offense. Obviously, the offense is explosive, but now they have a defense to pair with that offense. And I think that's what makes them so dangerous.
Yeah, I think the one concern I would have, and we're going to find out more in Week 15 when they host the Patriots, is seeing if they can handle all those multiple looks, and are they going to have guys that can take away something from Tom Brady at least? And I think that's going to be the concern. The one good thing that's developed here is that their run defense has gotten better. It had some holes against the versatile running backs, and that can be an issue with the Patriots. They can always go away from your strengths, use their backs to create some mismatches. So that's what I'm going to be most interested to see in that game is, can that pass defense hold up against backs? Because that's going to be, I think, ultimately make or break against the Patriots. And I think as much as the defense has played well, they need that offense to keep rolling, because you need to have the Patriots in a position where you pick your poison, Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown. Fortunately, Bell got hurt in that playoff game last year, which changed the complexion of that early. So they need their offense also humming at the right level if they're going to take down New England, both in Week 15 and later on in the playoffs.
One of the most perplexing teams in football this year has been the Ravens. They've shut out 3 teams this year. Of course, the last few teams that did that, they all won the Super Bowl. I think we can all agree the Ravens are not winning the Super Bowl this year. They're not that kind of team. So what are they? Are they even a playoff team? Are they just a roller coaster ride? What is this Ravens team at this point?
The Ravens is that team that is just sitting there waiting for the rest of the bottom of bad AFC to break down and kind of swoop in there and get the playoff spot. And I think they've always been in that position, and this year it's coming to fruition for them pretty nicely with the way things have happened. I mean, you look at the Raiders, the team that went out and lost to the Ravens because they had E.J. Manuel starting. Then you had the Dolphins play there in a short week, another wild card hopeful, lose with Matt Moore. Now they get Tom Savage and the Texans here at home. So a lot of things just continue to line up for the Ravens in terms of schedule and the way they played. It's kind of ugly, but you can see with the shutouts that defensively they're strong against both run and pass. That's going to keep them a lot of games. If Joe Flacco can find any kind of better play here down the stretch, and there's some potential with that with Danny Woodhead and Mike Wallace and Jeremy Maclin, that he can get the job done at least to get this team to the playoffs. So right now they're a strong, strong bet to hold on to that number 6 seed in the AFC.
Vinny, I'm going to give you a list of the motley crew of teams that are contending for the 2 wildcard spots, and you give me your 2 favorites for the AFC. You ready?
Okay.
All right, so we got the Bills, the Ravens, the Titans, and the Chargers. Of those 4, who are your 2 favorites to make the AFC wildcard teams?
I still think it's the Titans and Ravens. You look at the schedule, it just works out for these teams pretty nicely down the stretch. And I think with those other teams, the Chargers, they're going to have to try to get through by the division, and I just see the Bills and Dolphins kind of free-falling out of this.
He is Vinnie Iyer. You can follow him on Twitter at Vinnie Iyer on Twitter. Vinnie, always appreciate the time. Happy Thanksgiving and enjoy the weekend of football.
All right. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.